My ex used me to raise her kids while dating another man, so I took all her property and left her life in Shambles, a 29-year-old guy, and for the past 4 years, I genuinely believed I was building a real family with my girlfriend, Hannah. When we first met, she told me she was done with unreliable men and needed stability for her 2 kids. I remember sitting across from her in a small cafe, the smell of burnt espresso in the air, as she whispered, "I just want someone who won't walk out on us." Those words hit me hard because I've always been the guy who stays, who shows up, who tries daughter Kidsima, and Jack attached themselves to me almost instantly. Emma would grip my hand when we walked through grocery aisles, and Jack would fall asleep on my chest while I helped him with math homework. I put in the work. Overtime shifts, daycare bills, school projects, parent-teacher meetings where teachers smiled and said, "It's great to see a father so involved," even though technically I wasn't one. Hannah always looked at me with that soft, grateful smile and said, "You're our savior. I don't know what I'd do without you," but somewhere around year 3, things changed subtly at first. Her phone, which used to lie face up on the counter, suddenly became glued to her hand. If it buzzed, she'd flip it over instantly. When I gently asked, "Everything okay?" she would stiffen and reply, "Can I not have a private moment without you analyzing me?" She started going out for me, time 2, sometimes 3 nights a week. The house felt colder on those nights, the air heavier, like it knew something I didn't. Still, I pushed the doubt away. I told myself love required patience, sacrifice, understanding. I convinced myself she was just overwhelmed. But one night, while I was making mac and cheese for the kids, Emma casually mentioned, "Mommy's friend gave us candy yesterday," before I could even finish asking, "What friend?" Hannah snapped from across the room, her voice sharp enough to cut the air dot. And that was the first moment I felt something inside me quietly shift. I didn't notice how deeply I'd slipped into the role of a full-time provider until one afternoon when I sat down to pay bills and realized every single one, rent, groceries, utilities. Dacre had my name on it. Hannah always spoke about rebuilding her career. But months passed, then years, and the only thing she ever rebuilt was her wardrobe. I'd come home to piles of shopping bags, and when I'd ask, "Did you get a job offer?" she'd sigh dramatically and say, "I'm trying, but it's hard when I'm so overwhelmed. You wouldn't understand." The days blurred together. Wake up at 5 a.m., work overtime, pick up the kids, make dinner, help with homework. By the time I finally sat down at night, the house was quiet, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the old wooden floors. And yet, despite the exhaustion, I felt proud when little Jack would say, "Dad, can you help me with my project?" Or when Emma would curl up beside me on the couch and whisper, "You always make us feel safe." Meanwhile, Hannah's behavior only grew stranger. She spent more time locking herself in the bathroom with her phone than helping around the house. When I approached her gently one evening, saying, "I feel like I'm doing this alone," she rolled her eyes and snapped, "So now you're keeping score?" Wow, I tried to push it aside. I told myself relationships go through difficult phases. That love wasn't always balanced. That maybe she was struggling internally, and I needed to be patient. But then I started noticing the financial slip-slate rent notices, even though I'd transferred the money. Missing grocery funds, unexplained withdrawals. When I mentioned it, she waved her hand and said, "Must be a bank error." Stop stressing. The kids remained my anchor, the only thing grounding me. Their laughter, their hugs, their trust, they kept me going. But one night, as I tucked them into bed, Emma whispered something that made my stomach tighten. Mommy's friend was here again, and this time, she told me his name. Emma's small voice echoed in my head long after she fell asleep. As I stood in the dim hallway, the nightlight casting a soft orange glow on the walls, her words kept replaying, "His name is Jason." I didn't know a Jason. Hannah had never mentioned a Jason. And yet, the kids spoke about him with the same casual familiarity they used when talking about their teachers or neighbors. The next morning, I tried to approach it calmly. Over breakfast, while the smell of buttered toast filled the kitchen, I asked gently, "Hey, the kids mentioned someone named Jason. Who is he?" Hannah's spoon froze halfway to her mouth. Her expression hardened instantly. "What are you doing?" she snapped, interrogating me at 7 a.m. "Seriously." "I'm just asking," I said quietly. They said they're kids, she interrupted sharply. They say random things. Stop reading into everything. Her reaction was too intense, too defensive, too fast. I felt a cold prickle run down my spine, but I swallowed it and went to work anyway, trying to act normal. But the next few weeks shattered any attempt at denial. She started staying out later than usual, sometimes midnight, sometimes 2 a.m. She'd walk in smelling like a mix of perfume and cigarette smoke, even though neither of us smoked. The moment I'd look at her, she'd glare and say, "Don't start," before I even opened my mouth. One night, she forgot to pick up the kids from school. I got a call from the school office, the secretary saying, "We've been trying to reach Hannah for an hour." My stomach dropped. When I reached the school, Emma looked worried, and Jack was on the verge of tears. When Hannah finally came home, she shrugged and said, "I lost track of time. Relax." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt like a warning. Every silence felt loaded. And then, one early morning, she came home at 3 a.m., smelling unmistakably like another man's cologne, the night she came home smelling like someone else's cologne. I finally asked the question that had been burning a hole in my chest. The living room was dim, lit only by the faint blue glow of the TV screen, and I could hear the soft hum of the fridge in the kitchen. My voice came out low, almost defeated. "Hannah, where were you?" She froze at the doorway, keys dangling from her fingers. "Can I breathe without you jumping down my throat?" She snapped. "I'm not jumping," I whispered. "I'm worried." She suddenly broke into tears, loud, dramatic sobs that echoed through the quiet house. She dropped onto the couch and wailed, "I'm falling apart. My mental health is a mess. And instead of supporting me, you're accusing me of cheating." Wow! I stood there, stunned. My anger melted into guilt so fast it scared me. She clutched her head and cried, "You don't know what it's like to feel trapped and pressured all the time." And just like that, somehow I became the bad guy. Over the next few days, she shifted into a new role, fragile, soft-spoken, vulnerable. She said things like, "I'm trying my best, and please don't push me away." I wanted to believe her. I wanted the family I thought I was building. That's when she asked me to sign a few documents to help with the kids' future. Papers about property, emergency authorization, financial accounts. "It'll make things easier if something ever happens to me," she said, voice shaky, eyes glossy with tears. I hesitated. Something deep inside me whispered, "Wait." But when I asked, "Are you sure this is necessary?" she looked wounded. "You really think I'd hurt you like that?" And like a fool, drowning in guilt and loyalty, I signed that night. As she stepped outside to take a call, I heard her whisper, "Don't worry. He bought it." I froze. The warning was right there, and I ignored it. After signing those papers, something in our household shifted quietly, almost invisibly, but enough for me to feel it in my bones. Hannah stopped trying altogether. It was as if she'd handed me the entire weight of the family and walked away without looking back. I'd wake up before sunrise, the house cold and still. Step over toys scattered on the floor, and start the day alone packing lunches, dressing the kids, brewing a pot of bitter coffee to keep myself standing. The kids depended on me for everything now. "Dad, can you braid my hair? Dad, can you check my homework?" Hearing them call me Dad should have filled me with warmth. But lately, it pressed heavily on my chest because I wasn't sure I deserved the title. And I wasn't sure Hannah wanted me to have it in the first place. Hannah spent entire days locked in the bedroom resting, or hours sitting in her car outside scrolling on her phone. Claiming she needed mental clarity, she stopped attending school meetings. She stopped making dinner. She stopped saying thank you. If anything, she seemed irritated by my existence. One night when I gently asked, "Can you help me clean up tonight? I'm exhausted," she didn't look up from her phone. "You're always complaining," she muttered. "If it's so hard, maybe you shouldn't have taken on so much." I felt myself shrinking, becoming quieter. Friends began noticing. My buddy Mark pulled me aside after work and said, "Man, you look drained. Are you sure she's not taking advantage of you?" I laughed it off, but the words stuck to me like burrs. The worst part, Hannah didn't even pretend anymore. She'd dress up, put on perfume she never wore around me, glance at her reflection with a small smirk, and say, "I'll be out for a bit. Don't wait up." One evening, as I was tucking Jack into bed, he whispered, "Mommy said you'll stay forever. Even if she leaves." I froze. Leaves for who? And why did she sound so certain? The moment Jack told me that Hannah said I'd stay, even if she leaves, something in me finally snapped awake. For weeks, I'd been brushing things aside, swallowing doubt like it was medicine, convincing myself this was just a rough patch. But the cracks were widening faster than I could patch them, and the universe didn't wait long to shove the truth in my face. It happened on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was at work loading inventory pallets when my phone buzzed with a blocked number. I almost ignored it until I saw the first photo, then the second, then the third. Hannah, locked lips with a man I had never seen before, smiling in a way she never smiled at me anymore, her hands on his chest, his arms around her waist, and the final message hit me like a truck. She's been with him for a year. Stop being her babysitter. My chest tightened so hard I had to lean against the warehouse wall. My hand shook as I scrolled through screenshot after screenshot messages between Hannah and this man. Jason, he thinks he's their dad. I swear I could leave for a week and he wouldn't question anything. Free childcare, free bills. I hit the jackpot. Then Jason's reply, keep milking him. I'm not ready to deal with kids anyway. My vision blurred. My ears rang. The air felt thin, like all the oxygen had been sucked out of the room. I don't even remember the next 5 minutes. Just the cold sting of betrayal spreading through every inch of my body. When I finally got home, the house was dark. Quiet. Too quiet. I stood in the doorway, staring into the silence. Feeling something heavy and dangerous growing inside me, Hannah walked in 20 minutes later, humming, tossing her purse on the counter like nothing had happened, and she was still wearing his cologne. I didn't say a word, not yet, because now I needed to see how deep this betrayal went. I don't know how I made it through that night without exploding. I stayed quiet, watching Hannah move around the kitchen, humming lightly, tapping her nails on the counter, scrolling her phone with that smug little smirk she didn't even bother hiding anymore. The whole room felt colder, like the air itself was recoiling from her. I could smell his cologne on her clothes, mixing with the faint scent of our laundry detergent, and it made my stomach twist. I waited until the kids were asleep before finally confronting her. Hannah, I said, my voice low and trembling, who is Jason? She didn't flinch. Instead, she laughed. Actually laughed. Oh my God, she scoffed, waving her hand. You're still hung up on that. You've been cheating on me, I whispered. For a year, she rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic. Jason is just a friend. You need to stop spying on me. I saw the photos, I said, and the messages. Her face hardened. A long, cold stare replaced the fake softness. Fine, she said, crossing her arms. So what? You're not even their father. You're just convenient. The word sliced through me. Convenient, not loved, not appreciated, just used. I've been raising your kids, I choked out, and she snapped. You chose that? Don't act like a hero now. The house felt like it was shrinking, pressing in on me from all sides. My throat tightened, and for the first time in years, I felt tears burning behind my eyes. You don't even care, I whispered. She shrugged. You're not going anywhere. You think you can leave? Please. You need us more than we need you. That sentence shattered something inside me. In that moment, I realized she didn't fear losing me. She feared losing what I gave her. As she walked past me, she muttered, just get over it. You're not leaving. But something in my chest, something tired. Something broken finally woke up, and I knew she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. After that night, something inside me went eerily still. Not numb, just quiet, like a storm settling right before it destroys everything in its path. I moved through the house like a shadow, watching, listening, absorbing every detail Hannah didn't realize she was revealing. The smell of her perfume mixed with that other man's cologne still lingered in the bedroom, and every time I walked past the doorway, it fueled me. While she slept late the next morning, I sat at the kitchen table scrolling through bank statements, lease agreements, and the documents she had pressured me into signing. That's when I saw it, my signature, tied to property. My name, linked to assets I never knew I shared. Small print that shifted financial control in ways she clearly thought I was too blind to understand. For once, her arrogance worked in my favor. I took photos of every document, screenshots, timestamps. I printed records at work and stored them in a locker she didn't know about. The more evidence I gathered, the clearer the picture became, Hannah wasn't just cheating, she was building a life with someone else while securing herself financially on my back. Assuming I'd never question her, I decided to visit a lawyer. The office smelled like old books and lemon cleaner, and my hands trembled as I passed over the folder of evidence. The lawyer flipped through everything slowly, eyebrows rising with each page. Finally, he looked at me. "Son," he said, "she didn't trap you. She accidentally gave you leverage." A lot of it. My heart pounded. "What do you mean?" He leaned back in his chair. "She made you partial owner of her assets. With this evidence of her misconduct, you could take control for the first time in months." I felt something warm hope mixed with vengeance. When I got home, Hannah didn't even look up from her phone as she murmured, "You better not be planning anything stupid." I smiled for the first time in a long time. She had no idea what was coming. After speaking with the lawyer, I stopped reacting to Hannah altogether. No arguments, no questions, no emotional responses. I became calm to command. That alone made her uneasy. She'd glance at me from across the room, her brows tightening, like she could sense something slipping out of her control. But she dismissed it, because in her mind, I was predictable. Safe, contained. She had no idea I was documenting everything, every late night, every missed school pickup, every charge on her secret credit card, every moment she forgot to feed the kids and left me to clean up the mess. I started recording our conversations. Small things at first. "Did you spend the grocery money?" "I told you to stop questioning me." Click, saved. I kept my voice soft, steady, calm, knowing her rage would expose her more than my words ever could. At work, I compiled evidence with the precision of someone assembling a case file for a trial. Witness statements from teachers, emails confirming her no-shows to school events. Even the kids unintentionally helped. Emma told her counselor about Mommy leaving us alone when her friend comes over. The counselor reported it. More documentation. I transferred utilities quietly into my name. I secured backups of every financial document. I moved some of my savings into a private account. Every step was careful, strategic, deliberate. At home, Hannah kept flaunting her affair like nothing mattered. She'd dress up, check her reflection in the hallway mirror, and smirk before saying, "I'll be back late. Don't bother calling." And I would simply reply, "Okay." One night my lawyer called and said, "With everything you've collected, this is more than enough. You're ready?" Ready. That word echoed in my chest, settling deep like a loaded gun, waiting to fire. As I hung up the phone, Hannah walked in, smelling like Jason's cologne, smiling like she had already won. And I realized, tomorrow, her world would finally start to break. The morning everything finally broke started off deceptively normal. I made breakfast for the kids' pancakes, sizzling on the skillet. The smell of butter filling the kitchen while Hannah lounged on the couch, scrolling her phone. She didn't even look up when I said, "The kids need to leave in 10 minutes. She just waved her hand and muttered, "You handle it." Her voice sounded smug, dismissive, like she believed I was permanently chained to this role she'd crafted for me. But by noon, the first legal notice reached her. I was in the bedroom folding laundry when I heard her scream from the front door. "What the hell is this?" I walked out slowly, my heart steady, my face calm. She was holding a thick envelope, her hands shaking, eyes darting across the page. "What did you do?" she demanded. I shrugged gently. "Looks like due process." The notice stated she had to vacate the property pending investigation into financial misconduct, fraud, and child neglect. The house was no longer solely hers. It fell under joint control, and with the evidence I submitted, the court leaned heavily in my favor. "You can't do this," she screamed, pacing, her voice cracking. "Oh, I didn't," I said quietly. "You did?" "I just showed them." She called Jason immediately, sobbing, yelling, cursing. I stood in the hallway and listened. "Jason, please come over. I need you." A pause. Then she sank to the floor as his voice echoed from her phone speaker. "Don't drag me into your mess." "I told you this would happen." He hung up. The kids clung to my leg, scared and confused. Emma whispered, "Why is Mommy crying so much?" And I gently guided them to their room. When I returned, Hannah was curled on the floor, mascara streaking down her cheeks, whispering, "You ruined my life." But I didn't respond. I simply walked past her, grabbed my coat, and headed for the door. Because this was only the beginning. Tomorrow, she would lose even more. Hannah demanded a meeting the next afternoon. Insisting we talk like adults, her voice was shaky when she said it, and for the first time in years, she looked small, fragile, the confident, manipulative woman who once strutted around the house with perfume and secrets now sat at the dining table, staring at trembling hands. The sunlight from the kitchen window hit her face, revealing dark circles under her eyes and a panic she could no longer hide. She didn't waste time. "Please, please don't do this," she whispered. "We can fix things. I made mistakes, but you're blowing everything out of proportion." I pulled out the folder, the screenshots, the bank statements, the neglect reports. I laid them out one by one on the table, the paper edges scraping lightly across the wood. "I'm not blowing anything out of proportion," I said calmly. "I'm just done being used." Her eyes flicked across the evidence, her mouth tightening, tears pooling. "You can't take everything from me," she cried. "You can't take my home, my life. You took those from yourself," I replied. "You just thought I'd never fight back?" She slammed her hand on the table. "I thought you loved us." I leaned forward slightly. "I did. I loved the kids. I loved the family. I thought we were. But you loved what I provided, not me." She stood abruptly, pacing, pulling at her hair. "You're ruining me," she said. "You're ruining everything." I inhaled slowly. "No," I said. "I'm ending what you started." She stopped. For the first time, she looked genuinely afraid. When she finally spoke, her voice was a fragile whisper. "What do you want from me?" I held her gaze. "Nothing," I said. "Absolutely nothing. That's the point." She sank into the chair, silent, defeated. The house felt unbearably still, as if it was holding its breath between us. But there was still one final decision I hadn't revealed yet, and it would break her more than anything so far. The day the final paperwork was approved, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Silence. Not the heavy, suffocating silence I used to feel in that house, but a clean, peaceful kind. The kind that fills your lungs instead of crushing them. I stood in the empty living room, looking around at the walls I had once repainted, the floors I had once cleaned after long shifts, the space where I had thought a family might grow. Now it was just a structure, a shell Hannah no longer controlled. When I handed the kid's father the documents granting him full custody, he stared at me with quiet gratitude. "I heard everything," he said gently. "Thank you for taking care of them when no one else did." I nodded, swallowing the tightness in my throat. "They deserve stability," I whispered. "They deserve someone who won't weaponize them." He took them home that evening, and I hugged Emma and Jack like it was the last anchor I was releasing. Emma cried softly into my shoulder. "Will you still see us?" she asked. I hesitated, heartbreaking a little. "Not for a while," I said, "but you'll always be my little girl." Jack squeezed my hand, his voice small. "I love you, Dad." I had to turn away so they wouldn't see the tears. Hannah's fallout was immediate. The moment she realized the house, the accounts, and her financial future were legally out of her hands, she spiraled. She sent messages, called not, pleaded, threatened, begged. "You can't just disappear," she sobbed in one voicemail. But she was wrong. I could, and I did. I moved into a small one-bedroom apartment across town. Cheap, quiet, mine. The smell of fresh paint and new beginnings filled the space as I sat on the floor, eating takeout. Realizing for the first time that I wasn't exhausted. I wasn't scared. I wasn't trapped. I was free. And as I stared out the window that night, I understood something deeply, painfully true. Sometimes walking away isn't the real victory. Sometimes the real victory is taking back every part of yourself that someone tried to break.